making oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. These cookies are big, thick, crisp at the edges, chewy throughout, and they're loaded with chocolate chips, not raisins. If you want to learn how to make this recipe, then be sure to watch this video all the way to the end because I'll be sharing my best cookie baking secrets. My name is Tessa and I'm from handletheheat.com, where I love to share sweet treats with a sprinkling of baking science, and all of the ingredient measurements for this recipe can be listed down below. Now to get started, we're going to mix together the dry ingredients. So in my bowl, I've already weighed out my all-purpose flour. To that, I'm going to add a little bit of salt, baking soda, baking powder, and a touch of cinnamon. This is optional, but I really like the flavor it gives these cookies. I'm just going to whisk that together. Now I like to use baking soda and baking powder here. You can learn more about the differences between both in another video on my baking science playlist. So next up, we're going to cream together the butter and sugar. I always use unsalted butter when baking. It allows me to control the amount of salt in any recipe. And when you're making cookies, you want to be sure to use butter that's at a cool room temperature. If your butter is too warm, that will cause the cookies to spread out into like those sad little puddles while they're baking in the oven, which we definitely don't want here. Just going to add some granulated sugar and dark brown sugar. I like dark brown sugar in this recipe because it adds more moisture and that butterscotch flavor. I have a whole video on how to DIY your own brown sugar and how to store brown sugar so it doesn't get all hard. So I'm just going to attach my beater attachment here, and then we're going to beat this for about 2 to 3 minutes on medium-high speed. The key with cookies is you don't want to overbeat the butter and sugar. With cake, you can beat it for like 3 to 5 minutes, but with cookies, just a couple minutes will do. If you overbeat your butter and sugar, then you can actually add too much air, and what will happen is the cookies will puff up and look beautiful while they're baking, and then when they cool, they'll flatten and look really sad. We definitely don't want that here, so I'm just going to beat for 2 minutes. Okay, my butter and sugar looks nice and creamy and fluffy. You can see that it's like got the specific texture that you're looking for. It's fluffy and light, but not super pale. And so next up, I'm going to add in eggs. So I'm actually using 2 eggs and 1 egg yolk. That extra egg yolk is going to lend richness and chewiness to these cookies. It's a great trick for any cookie recipe. And actually, I have a full free cookie customization guide that shows you how to make any cookie recipe more chewy or cakey or crispy, whatever your heart desires. I'll link to that guide down below so you can download it. So my eggs are at room temperature so they blend in cohesively, and I'm just going to add them one at a time. Okay, and lastly, for my wet ingredients, it's just a splash of vanilla extract. Okay, so even though I'm using one of the attachments that scrapes the bowl as it goes, I still see little pockets of unblended sugar and butter, so I'm just going to scrape down my attachment and then get into the bottom of the bowl and scrape that down too. If you've ever made a batch of cookies where almost all the cookies looked perfect except a few looked like they kind of exploded in the oven, it was probably a little hidden pocket of butter that didn't get blended in with everything else. Next up, I'm going to add in that flour mixture. So I've added in my flour mixture, and I'm going to start my mixer on low speed so I don't end up with a cloud of flour all over my kitchen. Okay, so now for the star ingredient, oatmeal. I'm actually using quick cooking oats because it's all they had at the store. You can use old-fashioned oats or quick cooking oats pretty much interchangeably. The only difference is that quick cooking oats have a finer texture. They've kind of been ground slightly more than old-fashioned oats, and they'll blend into the cookies better. If you use old-fashioned oats, your cookies will have a more rustic, kind of loose texture, but either way, they'll be delicious. And then I'm also adding in semi-sweet chocolate chips. Now, if you did want to use raisins instead, you totally could, but as a chocolate lover, I have to go with chocolate chips. And just give that a mix until it's all combined. Okay, the dough is ready, and I actually get asked a lot of questions about oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. Can you just add oatmeal to your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe? The answer is usually no, because oats will actually suck up a lot of the moisture in your cookies. So if you just added oats to a regular chocolate chip cookie recipe, the result would probably be really dry, maybe even crumbly. So I definitely recommend using this recipe if you love oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. So to shape our cookies, I'm using the large cookie scoop. It's a 3 tablespoon scoop because I like these to be really big and chewy. And I'm just going to scoop them out onto a parchment lined baking sheet. Now, I typically like to use parchment instead of silicone baking mats because one, a silicone mat is just another thing you have to clean, but also I find that if you allow cookies to kind of cool on silicone mats for too long, they get slightly soggy instead of crispy at the edge. Contrast of a gooey, chewy center with crispy edges, so I love to use parchment paper. Okay, and before I send these off to the oven to bake, I'm going to do a little trick to make them look picture perfect. So I'm going to roll each ball between the palms of my hands and then flatten it slightly and then add a few chocolate chips on top so they look like they're from the bakery. Okay, my cookies look good. They're ready to bake in a 350-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes or until golden brown at the edges. Right, the cookies are out of the oven. They look and smell amazing, perfectly golden brown. I cannot wait to take a taste. These are perfect with a tall glass of cold milk. If you try to make this recipe, be sure to take a photo and hashtag it Handle the Heat so we can all see your amazing cookie creations. The full recipe is listed down below, and don't forget to download my free cookie customization guide. I'll link to that down below as well. Now it's time for a taste. These are so chewy and moist, crispy at the edges, and you gotta love the chocolate chips. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.